Yeah, or it's like when you read a book, you see everything happening.
Exactly. Everybody does it.
Yeah.
They
People just expect to see these giant,
Yes.
birds flapping and anyway.
A big demonstration.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, we don't want the big demonstrations.
No,
Anytime I've had a big
request that
demonstration,
those don't happen. So, yeah.
anytime that's happened, I really was challenged.
It's overload. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it can even be dangerous.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to handle it. Okay, mediumship is the communication with those who have died, being contacted by spirits from other realms. What do you have to say about mediumship?
Yeah, mediumship. Some kids will just be very open and be able to see all the entities all the time. I call those the random departed. It's like it's not a departed who's got a specific message for you. It's just a departed who came along because they could tell you could see them and they wanted to say hi.
Yes.
Sometimes kids will see spirits around the places where they live.
Yeah.
That just spirits that always live there, have always lived there, aren't causing any problem. That's just where they live. And sometimes the wonderful piece is when they can see, a grandparent, or if a parent had passed, or a special relative, then those types of seeings can be very comforting and nice.
You know, the interesting aspect of this is it's one thing as an adult to have those experiences. And all that you said, I've experienced as an adult. I can't imagine being 5 and 6 years old and dealing with this without a parent awake enough to be able to really help assist, because they get so paralyzed with fear. And think about yourself as an adult dealing with, every house I lived in until I was 35 was haunted.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. For me, when I look way back, we used to live in Europe quite a bit, and there would be all this history and all this sense of and they were always entities.
Always there.
I didn't know what they were, but I could always sense.
Yeah.
So it was just part of life.
Stay out of Scotland.
Scotland. Yeah, I don't know.
Bad stuff in
right,
Scotland.
Right.
Bad entities in Scotland. So here's another one I think that needs some definition, and it's called channeling, the art of receiving via another entity, being moved aside in order to receive from the collective consciousness. And in some children's cases, it could be music, art, or other creative expressions. Now, you've put that in a very nice little box, but the truth is that there's a warning to channeling for people who are just experimenting and they're not working with a teacher. They can get themselves into some serious trouble.
Well, I think one of the things that I do is I put this kind of this divine layer down before I go anywhere, and if I'm working with someone, the divine layer has to go on first before we do anything else, so that there's protection, and we're always working from this highest vibration. But I channel from a variety of different entities.
But you're so unique in some ways in this, because I'm hearing the more beautiful story of how this can work. And then I've heard the other side of what's happened in society when people aren't approaching it from that pure place. And if these kids start trying to do this, they're in danger as far as I'm concerned. They really need to have a deeply rooted system of understanding and appreciating and respecting how these systems work.
How to put that divine layer on for themselves.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah. That's exactly true.
And that's why you wrote the book.
Yeah. Put on the divine jacket first before you go outside. Don't forget your jacket. Yeah.
Okay, here's the magic carpet ride. Remote viewing, and that's the ability to see things that are far away as if you were there in person, and that's wonderful.
I think kids are actually probably, remote viewing and astral projection don't have the same emotional content that some of the other, and so for kids who don't have the emotional depth developed yet, they're just kids, these are just lickety-split little talents, like a party trick almost, like let's see what's in the box. Oh, you're right again. Oh, let's try another practice. They're just great at it.
Astral projection is kids who astrally project, move their consciousness to different places while their bodies stay put. And they will tell you about transporting themselves to other lands and distant galaxies, and this may include past life regression, which is future or past. And you know, if you've ever had a flying dream, or you've been meditating and all of a sudden you're pulled completely out of your body, and while you're there, you're sort of comfortable with it, but the minute your mind realizes that you have astrally projected and you put any emotion on that, it can be a hard fall. Actually, I was bounced right off of my bed onto the floor, sat up and went, oh my God.
Where was I?
No, I remembered where I
How
was,
did
but
Yeah.
what happened in that experience and the messages that I was getting, and then to have all of a sudden something happen that sort of scared me a little bit, that bounced me back so that I crashed back into my
Yeah.
body. That's another thing that I think if children had some instruction, they wouldn't. I didn't have any instruction. Every time I've astral projected, it's been spontaneous.
Right, right.
I've had no instruction.
Yeah. So I think though, something that these kids have that maybe you and I didn't have, they have this ability to just understand that there's no, it's just jumping. I call it levels and layers. It's just jumping layers.
A knowing.
And so
Yeah.
it's you're either here, or you're here, and it's the same.
No big deal.
It's the same. Yeah. So they have a little easier time of
Yeah.
doing the beam me up.
But that is an
transporter mode.
extraordinary gift to be
It
able
is.
to do that at will. That is extraordinary. And then we have the energy healing, and that's pretty much self-explanatory, where they can heal with their hands in present or in distance. And then the spiritually advanced children have the gift of the deep spiritual knowing, and they astound you when the deep knowing of things that they haven't had access to. And so I
Yeah.
think that
Or that you wouldn't expect them to have the emotional depth to even access.
exactly.
It's like they just have it.
it's like all of a sudden they're speaking French and
Yeah.
remember their past life.
Right.
And
Or they're speaking about Jesus from the voice of Buddha. It's like, oh, wow. And what did you want for dinner? So it's just sort of, that's something.
eat your carrots and
It is that combination of, the sacred and, I won't say the profane, but the sacred and the earth, because
Yeah.
they are these beings, and yet they aren't picking up their socks. The combination is very, it's both.
Yeah.
Both at the same
I
time.
could make fun with that one, but I don't think what are some of the overlapping abilities?
Yeah, well, a lot of times, just like in school, at least I was certainly slotted to gifted in languages, not so great in math. Kids are going to have little clusters. So if you've got a
Yeah.
clairvoyant child who can see imagery, it's probably likely, just putting these together, they might be a medium also, because that involves visual skills. If they're clairaudient and have hearing abilities, then they might more easily be a channel or a receiver of, like receive music in their ears. So I would guess, I'm going to put it out there, and I say probably no child just has one ability. Usually abilities cluster.
They're multifaceted.
Yeah.
And we put a label on them, either intuitive or psychic. But the truth is there's so many different levels to those abilities.
And yes, and I would also say, from my own experience, the clairaudience came first, and then the clairvoyance, and then it just kind of went down the line. Okay, we're going to get a new ability this weekend, or whatever it was. With kids, it developmentally, as you'd learn to read, learn to tie your shoes, learn to do this and that, the abilities just open, so that many kids have most of the abilities, if not all.
The first gift that I learned was to get out of my body. The second one was to see the energetics that were going on,
Yeah.
and not knowing how to deal with them, but seeing them. And then it became auditory. I started hearing, and I was going through your quiz because I've never looked at a quiz like this, quite like this before, and I had most of them as they have developed through my life, but I couldn't have identified them
Right.
on this level when I was younger.
Yeah. On the quiz too, I didn't do it where, you get 3 points for this.
It isn't about that at all.
I want parents to just look with a very
Yeah.
open mind at, and almost to take the quiz with their heart, not their brain, so that, okay, here's the one that I'm attracted to. Why do I need to look at that question?
Well, these little children's souls, these are their souls' arrangements, and how they expand and how they develop can be made so much easier on them if we have this awareness for them. Because right now, there are no schools for them.
Right, there's not, and very few
And we
trainers
need
either.
to have,
Yeah.
well, I take that back. There's government.
Oh, the remote, yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of government stuff going on with testing these children, and that's a little bit more serious. I think we talked about that on the psychic panel. Okay, so if is it necessary to continue to try and label a child with psychic or spiritual gifts? I don't think it's a good thing.
I don't think so either. I think that the whole indigo piece was good because it brought that open, but then everyone, are you crystalline or indigo or what?
Rainbow?
Yes,
Yeah.
right, double crystalline. They're just kids. This is our evolution. This is where we're going.
That's, I think, I can only speak for my generation because I did seem to see differences between what I saw as an indigo child, and then I saw a rainbow and a crystal, and the differences were in the number of gifts they had and the strength in their abilities and how high vibration in development that they were. And when I met a crystal years ago, I never forgot how refined they were. Their hands, fingers are longer usually. They have the most incredible eyes that you want to fall into. They are physically extremely refined and very, very beautiful and charismatic. But there's something very soft. They laugh easy, and their brilliance is sort of, you can see it's there, but they don't flaunt anything. There's a grace about them. So I made that mistake of labeling, and I appreciate what you wrote in your book about not labeling, because that does create a separation. And what are we trying to do? Not create separation.
And also, a lot of this book was for mainstream parents who were coming across this, and so these kids, they have these abilities, but they also want to play soccer and do
normal, everyday kind of
so
kid
it's not
things.
just they're in the psychic box and they have no other activities. They have a full life as a child, and this is just a part of them.
And that's the grounding, isn't it? They need that full experience like everybody else. Okay. How does a child open psychically?
Well, I believe the more you can put them with, I call it just giving them downtime, and downtime is not time in front of the computer monitor, even though my own little daughter is probably in front of one right now as we speak, but
limited exposure.
Yeah, downtime is when you're laying around saying, I'm bored. You go look at the sky, you go out in nature, you relax. That's how adults open too, this sense of time expanded so that we aren't just scheduled up. Kids need that even more so that their minds can just be free.
Well, you can imagine how fast life is moving and how our nervous systems are being affected. And these kids' nervous systems, I believe, are way more affected than even ours. And I think that they need the soaks in the tub. I think that they need the kind of music that quiets and is very healing to their nervous system. And I think their development, as you have said in your book, it happens in stages. But you have to keep an eye on the communication that you're having, that the child could even tell you what it needs. And it may need water.
Right.
It may need to go to the pool.